Hello, Tracy here with another scrapbooking process video. Today I am scrapping a page using the hip kit for the month of August. I have the main kit and I also have the embellishment add-on. And I came up to Scrapbook today because I was sorting out my basement, and in the process of it, I came across a bunch of old books and scrapbooks of my own, and somewhere along the way, I got this inspiration to cut some chevrons and put them on a background. And at first I thought that I had seen it in one of the books that I just quickly flipped through a bunch of books to see if I was going to get rid of them or keep them. But as I did, so at first I thought that I took this layout from a book, but it wasn't exactly from a book. It was just kind of like the idea came from the book. But then the more I started scrapbooking, the more familiar this felt to me. And I think I've done this myself before. Once I went to do the journaling, I realized I've definitely done this before. Anyhow, as you can see, I'm just using my little T-square ruler here to make some chevrons that I'm just cutting out of this. It's kind of chevron paper on there's little chevrons on the paper as well. So it's very meta. Chevrons on chevron paper. And the original idea that I had involved kind of just, putting chevrons straight down the center of the page. But what I decided to do here is make my chevrons a little bit off center, as you can tell. And so I'm just trying to use my Fisker's trimmer for this, even though the pieces are a little bit too big once you put them on an angle like that. Now, what I was going to do was top off I was going to do 3 chevrons or 2 chevrons, and then top it off with a triangle. And I was going to put that triangle on the top of the page. And but then I realized, I think I just want more chevrons. So I had already cut the paper, so I'm actually going to tape the paper back together again using some washi tape. I'm also just here lightly erasing the lines that I had drawn. And yeah, I'm going to decide here to just put this paper back together again. So I'm going to use this piece of wide washi to do that, and it looks pretty good like that. I'm just using the width of the ruler itself as my guide because that's pretty convenient to do it that way. So that's what I decided to do. And I'm going to cut one more chevron. And then, I could have put one of those triangles in the top, but I decided not to because at this point I just liked the way it looked just with the chevrons. So I'm going to just do that. So once I cut that paper, it kind of wasn't held together anymore by the washi tape, so I had to tape it again. But I think it looks okay. You can't really tell that it was cut in 2 places. So I'm going to glue these pieces onto my background, as you can see, and I'm just eyeballing it as far as where these are going to land on my page. And right here, I'm feeling like that top one is just a wee bit too high up, so I'm going to pull it off. Usually this tape that I use, it's Tombow double-sided adhesive, like a Tombow tape runner. And usually it's very forgiving, but this time it did tear my page a little bit, but it's okay because I didn't move it over enough that those torn parts would show. So here is the basis of my page. And I definitely want to add some texture. So I have grabbed my sewing machine and I have it threaded here with white thread. And I just changed my camera angle so that you can see a little bit better what the process is for sewing. So as you can see, my sewing machine is kind of moving around on me as I sew. But I went across the first chevron with just a medium length straight stitch, and I decided that wasn't adding quite enough texture, so I decided to go with a medium sized zigzag pattern or zigzag stitch, and added that to the page, and I liked that. So on each strip I'm going to do some straight stitching and some zigzag stitching. So this is the zigzag. And as you see, you can just curl your paper up so that it fits through the sewing machine. Just try not to make any harsh bends in it. As long as you just curl it the way I'm doing right there, it shouldn't affect your page too much. So there we go. Done chevron number 2. And now I'm doing the last chevron here. And this is the zigzag stitch. And when you turn the corner, you just stop so that the needle is in the page, lift up your foot, turn the paper 90 degrees, and then continue stitching. And now I'm doing the straight stitch for the last one. And this is going to add quite a bit of texture to the page. It's still very subtle. And it's subtle because it's white, right? If I had used black, it would have quite a bit more bold look to it. But I wanted this page to have a bit of a washed out white look to it. So I decided to use the white thread. Now I do want even a little bit more kind of texture or emphasis on these chevrons. So what I'm doing is I actually left my scrap space to walk over to my shelving unit and grab my gesso. It took me a while because I don't have many brushes left. All of my brushes have somehow gotten ruined. So I'm using a makeup brush here because I literally don't have paintbrushes. And so I'm just using a dry brush and smearing it on. I'm trying to make it look kind of messy, and I wanted, since it went on pretty thick on the right side on the top 2 chevrons, I wanted to put it on thicker on the left side on the bottom chevron, just so it didn't look too, uniform. What I'm doing here is I'm actually wetting a baby wipe, so it's super, super wet, and wrapping that paintbrush in the super wet baby wipe, and then I'm putting it in a Ziploc bag. That's going to keep that paintbrush from drying out while I do the rest of this page, so that this brush, unlike my other brushes, won't be ruined. Now I'm taking my Tim Holtz distressing tool, and I am just shredding the heck out of these chevrons. I'm shredding the chevrons because I want them to look even more textured. So I am being quite rough with them. And I'm pulling up the edges, and then I'm just running those blades across the paper, which, softens and tears the edges. And you end up with all this little lindy kind of dust all over your workspace. So make sure that you blow it off or sweep it off before you do anything else, so that that dust doesn't get all over everything. And here we go. I'm almost finished this process, but it just adds so much. Look at that page now. So yummy. I love pages like this. So I'm pretty pleased with how this is looking, but at this point, for once, normally I pick out my photos first and then I start scrapbooking, but this time I had the idea for the background, so I just wanted to get started, and then I pressed pause and went and found some photos. Now, these 2 photos, I'm definitely going to scrapbook both of them, but I'm only going to put one of them on this page. This is probably going to be the first of several pages in my album about the wedding. Some of them might be pocket pages. I'm going to mat this photo because I cut it down from a larger photo. I'm going to mat it on white cardstock. And I just used my little Fiskars trimmer, which is from Close to My Heart. And I was going to use some tissue paper for a layer behind, and then I decided to use a whole bunch of tissue paper layers. So I folded my tissue paper, and then I realized once I cut the pieces, it's all going to fall apart. So I just used my tiny attacher to stick them together in the center, and that way when I trimmed the edges with my scissors, they still remain all intact in the middle. Now I just want them to be not so uniform because I cut them all at once. They were all kind of like the same size, so I'm just going through and giving my layers a little bit of a haircut so that the edges are all different sizes, so that when I kind of bunch them up like I'm doing, they're gonna curl and, you know, look kind of a little bit more interesting than if they all ended at once. So look at all the texture on this page. There's quite a bit. Now I want my title to go right under the photo. I feel like it's going to look good and be pretty anchored there. I don't know what the title is going to be, and I actually had to press pause and like think a little bit because I was really having a hard time coming up with a title. But I decided to go with the title Pretty Girls. And I'm going to do something with the word girls that is a little bit risky for me. I don't normally use my own handwriting in titles, but I'm going to cursively write out the word girls. So as you can see, I'm using these Simple Stories alphabets that came in the hip kit. They're so pretty and they work so well with this page. And so I decided once I saw that the Y was hanging out too far, I just decided to scooch the P so that it was layered a little bit under one of those chevrons, and that gave me enough space so that my Y doesn't stick out so far from under my photo. And hello, Lila. She came to visit me. I don't normally scrap with my door open, so my kitties don't visit very often. So I'm writing the word girls really loosely, and I'm trying to write it spread out, but it was too small. I didn't spread it out quite enough. But here I'm just like exaggerating how wide it is. And then I just went back over it again just to kind of distinguish the size of it. And now as I go over it with my pen, that's when I'm adding the details. So the first time when I did it with the pencil, I really just did like the general shape. Like I didn't put the little swirlies on the S, or the hoops, the little loops at the top of the S, and also the little tiny loop on the R as well. But neither of those were there in the pencil writing. Those are the details that I added with the pen. And then as you can see, I'm just very gently erasing with my white eraser, my white Stettler eraser, which is my favorite. And I really like how that turned out. I was kind of shocked that it looked as good as it did. It looks like someone else did it, so I'm pretty pleased because my handwriting is not very nice at all. So now, pardon me, I want to have a little embellishment sticking out from under the layers of the photo. And, oh, I meant to use those butterflies on this page and I forgot. I forgot to do that. I hope I hung on to them because, yeah, I'll put them on a different page. Yeah, I have them right here in front of me right now. So anyhow, I cut off the butterflies to use them, and then I also cut up some of those cut aparts because I want to make myself a little homemade tag. The tag that came, I liked the grid paper here, but the tag itself, like it looked like a little binder clip, and it was too big for putting under my photo. I just want a tiny little embellishment sticking out, and there was nothing in the kit. Like I looked through the die cuts and I looked through the stickers, and none of them were empty enough. I wanted something kind of plain, so that's why I'm making my own here. The plainest thing I could find was this graph paper. Now I am going to outline, and I'm using for inspiration the outlining that was already there. So I'm making the outlines kind of a little bit further apart than I normally would, so that it looks like it's outlined. And now I'm just going over to my stash and I'm going through my punches and looking for one of my circle punches. And I'm looking for one of my smaller circle punches, which are a little bit hard to find. The way that I store them now is not the greatest, but it works for my space. I used to like having my punches out on my wall, but I had to change my scrap room recently to accommodate work, and I just had to get some stuff off the wall. I didn't want it to be so cluttered. So I use that tiny little punch. I think it's a 1/4 inch punch. And I just glued it. And now I'm going back to my stash and I'm looking for another punch. And that one is going to be too big. So I don't want the hole to be quite so big. Now this hole is too small. So I just punched a bunch of holes all together, and it gives it like a rough punched look. It's not a perfect punch. And then I'm just using the string to smooth out the edges on that weirdly punched circle. And I'm taking quite a lot of green twine here, green and white twine, baker's twine. And I was going to put it on the other side, but then I quickly decided to put it over here. I just think it looks really pretty there. I'm going to bundle up the twine so that it's all bunched up there. And going to glue that tag in place. Just like that. And then I'm going to take a little bit of Tombow Mono Multi adhesive and just put a blob. I just squeezed a blob under the bottom, and then I'm squeezing a blob under the top. And that will just keep the messy twine in place. And I thought about using this chipboard flower from Prima that came in the kit. I thought about using that as an embellishment, but not on this page. I want this page to be very clean looking so that the real only embellishment on it is the texture that you get from the cutout chevrons and the stitching and the gesso and all the texture from those distressed edges and everything. So my embellishing on this one is going to be fairly minimal, thus a fairly short process video for you guys here today. I do want to put something else, so I have those layers, and I stuck a little sticker that says Happy Day, and then I put another little sticker star on there, just very, very tiny. And then this is where I realized I've definitely done this layout before, or a very similar one, because I wanted to journal along the chevron, and I know I've done this before. So it says, on Saturday, August 21st, Jen and Adam finally tied the knot. And then I did want to continue my journaling over to the other side, but I couldn't really think of what to write. And then I realized I haven't written the year yet. So I will put, it was the highlight of 2021. And there you go. Now I haven't talked about like the role of the girls or anything like that, because that will come in another layout, perhaps another 12 by 12, or perhaps a Project Life type of pocket page layout. So I want to put just something else here, and I want to kind of brighten it up and add a splash of color that'll pick up on that bright green on the other side that has the Happy Day sticker. And so I wanted to put a little label underneath of this little hexagon with a color wheel on it. And so I just went into my stash and grabbed a very small Allie Edwards sticker. It could be Kelly Perky, but I'm pretty sure it's Allie Edwards. And then I'm going to put 2 enamel, these are not enamel dots, I think they're Say It With Crystals from Prima. I put a pink one on one side and a greenish one on the other side. So there it is, all done. So now you'll get to see some close-ups. Thanks so much for watching this one. It was very, very quick because it was a pretty simple layout. Once that background was done, I really didn't want to add too much to it. So I hope you guys enjoyed this process. Take care and have a really great scrappy week.